Roland Berger is among the world's top 5 business consultants. In this series, he travels the globe for DWTV, meeting the movers and shakers in business, politics and the arts. It's an exclusive and personal take on what makes the world go round.
Tokyo never ceases to amaze me every time I come here. One of the most amazing things is how well this gargantuan city works. And there's always something new about it. Take Roppongi Hills, for instance. It's a city within a city, with apartments, shops, and offices. It rises 240 meters and almost 3 billion euros into the sky. I think I'll check out the view from the top. Up to the 52nd floor. There's a helicopter landing pad up here, and you get a breathtaking view of this megalopolis of 12 million. The man who built this doesn't believe in recessions. I have an appointment with him right here in this building. On the way, I passed through his museum. Minoru Mori is a collector of modern art, and he certainly possesses the means to pursue his expensive hobby. Mori is one of the richest people in Japan. He's got all he could ever need, but he's not quite done yet. He's currently working on plans for the tallest building in Shanghai. He seems to have weathered Japan's real estate crisis of the 1990s fairly well. At that time, prices everywhere were in free fall. But Mori just kept on building and even buying right into the sell-off. I'm sure you've developed a vision of what the megacity of the future should look like.
With high-rises, we can intensify the effective use of the available space. By building skyscrapers, we can even make use of the sky. And that opens up an enormous space for us to move around in. It also enables us to bring more light into the city and even more green space. The city used to be more or less two-dimensional. It was made up of lots of tiny single-family homes and office buildings that were only 5 to 7 stories tall. But nowadays we can build high-rises of 50 to 70 stories, thereby increasing the efficient use of space by as much as tenfold. Though it would be enough for me if the degree of efficiency could be doubled or tripled. Then we'd have an entirely new city.
To me, whatever else a modern city is, it should be green. Mori, the maestro of modernism, thinks the same way. He thinks a city should have plenty of space for recreation too. Not far away from his skyscraper, I run across an oasis of tranquility. The traditional and the modern exist side by side in Japan. It's been almost 30 years since I came to Japan for the first time. Even then, the Japanese love affair with state-of-the-art technology was in full bloom. There are whole streets in Tokyo devoted to displaying the latest gadgetry and high-tech innovations. The Akihabara Quarter is the launching pad for many of the newest products. If they fail to get off the ground here, their makers don't have to bother marketing them elsewhere. There's no sign of Japan's much-hyped economic slump here. Shopping hours go 24/7. Cell phones with still frame and video functions are standard equipment. In Japan, the telephone isn't just for talking anymore. Here's something really useful. I could use one of these massage chairs on a long-haul flight. Only high-tech models are sold here, of course. No other country has registered as many patents as Japan, and no European economy spends as much on research and development. My next stop is Sony Corporation. This superpower of consumer electronics has long dominated the market, leading the tech race with a steady stream of new products. But now it's just as much a race to win the hearts and souls of consumers.
Ambassador, it's very nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you.
I travel around the world without any jet lag.
Uh-huh. I have jet lag.
I can work longer than a typical Japanese salaryman, as long as my batteries last.
Developers at the Sony labs came up with this robot called Curio with a Q. What fascinates me is the almost human features and movements. Curio is a software marvel. It's being touted as a companion for elderly people living alone. Quite convenient when real humans run out of the time and the desire simply to be there for one another. I could really get to like this little fella. The developers have to be part marketers, hip to what's going to be hot long before it is. Sony does the greater part of its business with consumer electronics. It came out with the Walkman. Now the competition is catching up fast and it needs another hit. The profits from the consumer electronics sector are shrinking. Sony has long served as the benchmark that other companies use to keep tabs on themselves and the industry. It's a shining example of a successful business driven by constant innovation. But where does the company go from here?
That's the new products from Sony.
That's what I want to ask Nobuyuki Ide, the head of Sony since 1995. He and I go way back. Ide is facing a daunting task. He's got to make Sony over as a 21st century corporation. You might call Ide the chief tech head. His own employees call him Mr. Cyberspace. He shows me a digital movie camera which dispenses with the film cartridges in favor of a chip, with enough capacity to store a 20-minute home movie. Ide envisions a merging of entertainment electronics, telecommunications, and computer technology. He's well aware that past performance is no guarantee of future success. When he goes to demonstrate his new mini camera, nothing happens. The battery's dead.
No batteries.
Yeah, the battery is always the problem.
Ide sees radical changes coming for the market.
This is a kind of new
Over the next 3 years, Sony will invest almost 9 billion euros in the development of future-oriented products. In some ways, the makeover process will be painful. Ide has already announced thousands of dismissals.
If you think about the future change of coming 3 years, so we should be more radical. So that is the reason we started the transformation 60. This is kind of corporate group-wide activity to streamline our like human body. Well, in 2006 only will be 60 years old. That means we have a lot of cholesterol, we have to care about blood pressures and many things. So this is not in all the restructuring in a crisis, but this is a kind of preparation for the change. Yeah, this is the important.
So Ide sees his makeover as a kind of slimming down, cutting out the fat and getting the company back in shape. Till now, Japanese firms have always guaranteed their employees a job until they retire. This is one tradition that's on its way out. I move on to the Mitsukoshi department store. Shopping is a favorite leisure time activity of the Japanese. It's not hard to see why, given the lavish displays jam-packed with sumptuous brand-name goods. Once again, in the midst of all the trappings of modern living, we find the traditional. 2 geishas from Kyoto are here, talking about their apprenticeships. Not far away, silk fabric is selling for over 1,000 euros a meter. Economics Minister Heizo Takenaka is one of the rare few who did not come from the political and business establishment. I met him at a summit in Davos once, while he was still a university professor, and he impressed me with his sharp analysis of Japan's economy. He has remained steadfast both in his nonpartisanship and in his demands for a modernization of the national economy. As is the custom in Japan, we exchange business cards, to be studied later with great care.
30 to 40% of the Japanese economy is tied to the state, and that has to change. We have to stimulate the economy, enhance competitiveness, and slim down the state sector. There's still quite a bit we have to do there. To cite a specific example, we've put together a program aimed at seeing through the privatization of the postal system, the reform of the pension system, and decentralization of public services.
I wanted to take a little trip on the Shinkansen, on my way to see a businessman who's advocating change. Often, the high-speed train is the best option for traveling long distances in Japan. It's designed with such precision that it can stop right on the centimeter, in line with marks on the platform. The distance between Kyoto and Tokyo is 500 kilometers, but the Shinkansen covers it in just 2.5 hours. It's a marvel of Japanese engineering. The woman sitting next to me is an interior decorator. She tells me she travels this route quite often. On clear days, you can see Mount Fuji from the train. To me, gliding past Japan's holy mountain at speeds over 200 kilometers an hour is the high point of the journey, literally. Today, fortune smiles upon me. The weather's good. During peak traffic hours, another Shinkansen arrives in Kyoto every 10 minutes. The old imperial capital is also a popular destination for tourists. On the outside, the old geisha quarter looks much like it has for centuries. The government is taking pains to preserve this area's cultural heritage, so it hasn't let any of the old wooden buildings be torn down. The training of a geisha lasted several years. They had to master all the social arts and graces, with all the ritual and ceremony involved. They had to be able to play an instrument, dance, and wear the most elaborate kimonos. They can still be seen in some tea houses today. Tradition runs very deep in Japanese society. Not even the younger generation can escape its influence. You might say it's the well from which Japan draws its inner strength. But now it's time for my appointment with the advocate of change. Kazuo Inamori is one of the country's most successful entrepreneurs, and for the past 3 years, a Zen monk. We meet at his temple, one of over 2,000 temples and shrines in Kyoto. He donated several million euros for the renovation of the temple. His company is Kyocera, the producer of office equipment. It makes annual sales of 8 billion euros. Inamori takes a critical view of some of the developments in Japanese society.
The entrepreneurial spirit has undergone a radical transformation over the past 40 to 50 years. At the time I founded my company, lots of people wanted to start their own businesses, but not because they wanted to be millionaires or billionaires. No, they wanted to take on the challenge, or they had a special technology or talent. Today it's very different. People are out to make short-term profits or take their company to the stock exchange. That's a drastic change in thinking.
He invites me to join him in a session of Zen meditation. It helps replenish your energy reserves, among other things. First, Inamori imparts to me one of the sayings of Buddha. He who would achieve a profit must benefit others with it. Inamori puts that into practice by helping to support his fellow monks. Back in Tokyo, I visit another temple, the shrine of modern capitalism, the Tokyo Stock Exchange, second largest in the world and state-of-the-art. A lot of investors have sacrificed a lot of cash cows on the altar here. In the past couple of years, share prices were bled white. In the lean years of the recession here, many were those who lost their faith in Japanese firms. The investment bankers of the international group Morgan Stanley heard the laments, but they were busy trying to save their own hides. Only in the last few months have the signals turned positive. Japan's economy is growing again. Kunsuke Hotta is chairman of Morgan Stanley Japan and always has his fingers on the pulse of the country's economy. He says the big corporations have restructured, and now the smaller companies have to do the same.
Still, we see the certain, say, number of middle and small business, which are more or less service-oriented or supply industries. They have to go through those restructuring as well as remodeling problem.
Now I'd like to visit a model Japanese enterprise, one that leaves its competitors in the dust, wherever and whoever they may be. Toyota is a perfect example. The car maker turned a greater profit in the last fiscal year than General Motors, Ford, and Daimler Chrysler put together. Sales are good in all parts of the world, and the quality's right. Toyota's hard at work on the prototypes for the cars of the future. This one is an ultra-compact city car. It can be driven vertically as well as horizontally. Toyota MegaWeb is a kind of automotive theme park where it's all about having fun, not making sales. The exhibits are made by Toyota, of course. I'm taking the new Prius out for a test drive. It's one of the new hybrid cars, combining an internal combustion and an electric motor. This cutting-edge technology can save up to 25% on fuel without sacrificing punch. Prius is Latin for precedence, by the way. I'm looking forward to getting back together with Yoshio Ishizaka, the vice president of Toyota. He's credited with successfully establishing Toyota's luxury model Lexus on the market. Like myself, Ishizaka is an auto racing fan. Toyota's liquid enough that it could easily swallow up a major car maker and wash it down with one or two more. But Ishizaka and his team prefer to go it alone, whether in the compact car market or Formula One racing. Toyota is the only Formula One competitor to build its entire race car on its own, from the engine to the chassis. Moreover, it builds the car in Cologne, Germany. My question is, when do you think the Toyota Formula One car will become world champion?
Toyota is independent, which means Toyota works with its own technology, and Toyota builds a little world all its own. But no one can win a race with technology alone. You have to have luck as well. But I'm confident that within 3 years we will have come far enough to be within reach of a Formula One victory.
The Japanese have their own way of doing things. They make their own decisions and set their own trends. But forced to adapt to changing conditions in an increasingly global marketplace, a few Japanese companies have broken radically with tradition. The car maker Nissan has even gone so far as to make a foreigner its president. Carlos Ghosn came from the French car maker Renault, which Nissan had formed an alliance with. We met briefly on a Sunday evening. Ghosn found a Nissan in crisis. He made sweeping changes and switched many of the suppliers, putting favorable conditions before traditional relations. Ghosn earned the nickname Icebreaker from his reputation for smashing through Japanese business practices, which were frozen in time and force of habit. At Nissan, too, that included mass layoffs. 20,000 employees lost their jobs. Nissan is gearing up to manufacture the whole range, from subcompact to luxury cars. The secret of Ghosn's success may have something to do with introducing new models while cutting costs. He's another auto racing fan, by the way.
The Z is a story. It's a story by itself, because this is one of the important car brands that belong to Nissan. And as you know, the Z has been stopped at the beginning of the 90s because the company was struggling and it was not considered as a priority. So it was left on the side. But still, the public want the comeback of the Z. We had a lot of Z fans club in the United States, in Japan. But particularly the employees, our engineer, wanted the Z back. And we started to work, but they were so motivated to bring back the Z that we ended up with this car. As you know, this is today the top-selling sports car in the United States. This is also, when you consider it on a period since the beginning to now, top-selling sports car in Japan.
Carlos Ghosn has broken many a tradition, but he saved Nissan, and that was enough to get this Gaijin a place of honor in Japanese business society. Japan itself had to break many of its most cherished traditions in the past few years, including many taboos. It has seen mass layoffs and mass restructuring, a painful process for Asia's leading economic power. But it's beginning to emerge from the crisis. And some things have remained the same, things that have proven their value in the face of momentous change. Once again, I set out for Kyoto. I met up with an old acquaintance, Masayoshi Furuhata. He's invited me for a kasaiki meal. He worked for one of Japan's largest retail firms for many years. He would like me to take some time and enjoy the finer side of Japanese life once more before I leave. I'm only too happy to take him up on that.
Tuna and red snapper.
The meal is perfectly and thoroughly structured. I'm a great connoisseur of Japanese cuisine, so I take the opportunity to speak with the chef. He's bought some giant crabs for today. A kaseiki meal consists of at least 10 courses, which generally include a seafood course. Yoshihiro Murata is famous throughout Japan. By preparing and serving this highly elaborate cuisine, he is also keeping a Japanese cultural tradition alive.
you.
This cultural heritage is truly a source of strength and cohesion for the Japanese people. I get a very strong sense of that fact with every visit to this country. Tradition is a solid foundation on which this industrial giant may contemplate change, whatever is necessary, with prudence and tranquility.